Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Prime Minister of today's debate. Today's motion is that the House would remove parliamentary immunity of lawmakers. Our country, Korea, is a democratic state. We, the government, is willing to maintain and keep the original principles of democracy. And as a democratic state, I think this motion should be passed to promote and maintain its democratic principles. As a Prime Minister, I would like to define today's motion to make this debate more effectively. First, we, the government, define the parliamentary immunity as the freedom of speech and the freedom of arrest. According to the Korean constitutional law, according to the Article 44, the freedom of speech and the freedom of arrest is defined as no member of the National Assembly shall be arrested or detained without consent of the National Assembly. Also, according to Article 45, no member of the National Assembly shall be held responsible outside the National Assembly for opinions officially expressed or for votes cast in the National Assembly. I think this definition is fair for both sides, and let me move on to our argument. Just how protected lawmakers should be from persecution. Privilege was designed to protect lawmakers from civil matters that would interfere with their legislative duties. However, legislative privilege should not become a get-out-of-jail-free card or escape from ever being put in jail card for legislators. Today, the government brought up this motion to prove that the parliamentary immunity of lawmakers is no longer effective and feasible, thus needs to be removed. To make this debate, our team, the government, has three main arguments. First, we are going to say, talking about the unfairness of this parliamentary immunity. And second, we're going to provide and show you that there are many abuses in the implementation of the privilege. And third, there is a public's distrust toward the lawmakers and toward the government because of this parliamentary immunity. And these three factors can also harm the democracy, and this is not we, the government, want to be stayed as a democratic state. Moving on to our first argument. To start with, all citizens are equal under the law. And those citizens include legislators. Members of parliament should not be above the law. Politicians cannot abuse this law for their own personal safety guard to the law. We should ask ourselves, in democracy, is this really a necessary law? Are lawmakers, as they are in the position to make laws themselves, unwilling to give up the prerogative, the rights, because they want to be protected from judgment? Should they be above the law? No, ladies and gentlemen, lawmakers are also a part of citizens that I just mentioned. It is unfair to give a different set of standards just because they are the lawmakers. They should be judged and punished for their faulty under the same standard as we, the citizens. However, in the status quo, lawmakers are judged by the Special Committee on Ethics. This Special Committee on Ethics is composed of the lawmakers themselves. Like the famous saying, men are blind in their own causes, or the skin is nearer than the shirt. Inside the Special Committee, the lawmakers tend to judge other lawmakers roughly. So even the lawmakers had made faulty and abused the parliamentary immunity, there has been no punishment and enough punishment for the lawmakers to use this parliamentary immunity. Yes.
Well, considering the fact that people are also evaluating the government officials in the parliament, won't the people actually punish the government officials if they made a mistake?
Actually, this is not true because, as I said, lawmakers are judged by the Special Committee on Ethics, which means they are not judged by the executive department. They are the separate thing, and this can be also explained with the division of three powers. And Thus, I would like to say that the legislative sector is a dependent sector, and they are judged under this committee, and so there are actually cannot be the interventions of the government. Moving on, as I said, lawmakers make laws. However, if they are abusing the laws in the constitutional law and the parliamentary law, which contains that how they should be punished if they abuse the parliamentary immunity, there is no necessity and there is no need to remain this parliamentary immunity for the lawmakers if they're misusing their privilege. Second, privilege is literally second, there are too much abuses of this immunity. Privilege is literally refers to special rights. Since parliamentarism has set in our country, lawmakers were given special rights such as the parliamentary privilege. However, many lawmakers are misusing their privileges. They are misunderstanding that this parliamentary immunity is a special authority that they can wield freely. They exert their power in an inappropriate manner. For example, the case of lawmaker Kim Sun-dong abused his freedom of arrest at the end of the last year. He fired tear gas inside the parliament during the session. He was accused of making disturbance in parliament. However, he refused to be examined by the prosecution for 5 times. He argued that because it was during the session and took place in the parliament, he had no need to get punished. In other words, he abused his freedom of arrest. These kinds of examples of abuses will be more elaborated by our Deputy Prime Minister. And so far, I gave you the 2 main points about the unfairness and abuses. And again, this unfairness and abuses of the parliamentary immunity hinders the principle of democracy, and we the government as the democratic state do not want this to be happen, and thus we would like to remove the parliamentary immunity, and I'm very proud to propose. Thank you.
Why was parliamentary immunity given to lawmakers in the first place? Now let's look at the history of the parliamentary immunity and how it was made. Now in the 16th century, in the British Parliament, the politics was in the middle of a transition from an absolute monarchy to a democracy. Now, the problem was that, despite the fact that it was going under this transition, kings, monarchs, and nobles still had power over congressmen. So, parliamentary immunity was made in order to make sure that these congressmen who were voting, who were speaking, who were supporting for a better democracy were not undermined, so that they were not abused, so that they were not punished for no reason at all. Now today, the opposition side will show you why this is still valid, why parliamentary immunity is still valid in our society, why it is still necessary, why it must be maintained. And secondly, we will tell you why it will actually encourage and produce a more productive democracy and a democratic debate. Now, before I move on, I would first like to rebut to what the Prime Minister of the government side said. Now, firstly, the government side said that this is actually a privilege to the people. Now, the opposition does not think so. The opposition considers this as a tool to actually make democracy a better world for us. Now, they talked about the democratic procedure, how they wanted to keep the democratic procedure in a society. Now, how can they say that they are going to keep the democratic procedure when these people, because this parliamentary immunity can be abused, when these people are interrupted in the middle all the time? Now, I'll actually elaborate on that. Now, what do we need in our democratic society right now? We need consistency in making policies and making laws, and we need to represent people properly. Now we need to take care of emergent problems that need attention right now. But think about what would happen according to the method that the government has given us. What would happen if these lawmakers, who are supposed to represent our people and represent our democracy, were interrupted in the middle all the time? And also, they talked about the problem of abuse, that parliamentary immunity can be abused. But actually, the opposition believes that without parliamentary immunity, it could actually be abused too. Now think about this. We believe that in our democratic society, people need to have strong stances. They need to be able to show their opinions strongly in front of other people because that is how they represent the people. But it can actually be counter-abused if you think about it in the other way. Now, one party is actually speaking for the people, representing the people, and they're showing their opinions strongly. They're giving their opinions and they're holding a strong stance. But without the parliamentary immunity and the other side, because they are against this political party, they say that this is defamation, and they call this strong stance, this representing strongly and supporting strongly, is actually a defamation on their side. So they accuse these people, and they have to go to court. Now, what would happen to the people who had been supporting that politician in the first place? These people would be suddenly left without representatives, and it could be abused without parliamentary immunity, we believe that parliamentary immunity should be maintained in our society. Now, going into our first argument about why it is necessary and still valid. Now, firstly, why is it necessary? It is necessary because there are emergent problems in our society that we have to take care of. There are things that cannot be delayed, things that we have to take care of right now. But what would happen if these people, because they don't have parliamentary immunity, had to go away from their jobs, had to go away from their tasks, and had to stop their works in the middle? As I've told you, we need consistency. We need to be able to take care of things immediately and quickly, because that is what the government prioritizes, by doing efficiently and effectively. Now, also, why is it necessary? Now, I'll tell you this on the level of for the people. Now, these people choose a representative because they believe that representative, that lawmaker, can support their needs, because the law that lawmaker has presented is actually what they are supporting. Now, this is how democracy works. People support the law that this lawmaker is trying to make. But how can the government say that it is justified that because there is no parliamentary immunity and these people had to leave their jobs in the middle of making laws that these people are supporting, these people will suddenly be left without representatives? Now, this is not fair, and we believe that.
ma'am.
No, thank you, ma'am. And we believe that these people being left without representatives and having to be punished because of a personal fault that this lawmaker did should not be, the punishment should not be transited to the people. Now, on the second level, why is it still valid in our society? Now, as I talked about the history in the first part of our speech, we told you that the reason that the parliamentary immunity was made in the first place was because they were dangerous for these congressmen, because despite the fact that these congressmen were trying to support democracy, other authorities were actually trying to undermine this, were harming this, were trying to stop this. Now, we believe that there still exist things like this that prevents people from able to further our democratic society. Now, what are these sources of obstacles? Now, one of them is the media. Now, the media has a problem of sometimes exaggerating the truth, even when something happens and it turns out to be different. They don't actually always report this on the news. And the problem is that this actually brings a majority of people to believe the wrong truth, or they don't get to know the entire truth. Now, we believe that this is wrong because people should be able to know this. And because this media can actually use their own political views to change the truth, to extort it, and to use it against the politicians that they do not agree with, it can be a form of abuse, and these media people can also form it as an enemy. And also, other politicians, as I've told you in the rebuttals, can abuse other people's strong stances as defamation, and they could always sue them to go to court, and this would undermine the democratic procedure. And to enter a second argument about the fact that it encourages a democratic and productive debate. Now, I told you that in the democratic society, we need to have a strong stance. People believe in different things, and different parties have different opinions, and these representatives represent those different ideas. Now, when they represent different ideas, for a productive debate, they hold strong stances. But the problem is that without parliamentary immunity, as I told you, when they do not have parliamentary immunity and they hold strong stances, the other political party can always use this, can always abuse this as defamation. And we believe that in our society, that is not what we need. In order for our democratic society to be able to develop, to become a society that actually supports and actually represents our society, we believe that these people should be able to hold a strong stance without being interrupted in the middle, and therefore we believe that the parliamentary immunity of lawmakers should not be removed. Thank you.
As the second speaker of the government side, I'd like to do mainly two things in today's debate. First, rebut to the points mentioned by the opposition speaker, and second, elaborate more on our team's argument and prove conclusively on why this House should remove this parliamentary immunity of lawmakers. Now going for their rebuttals, ladies and gentlemen, they have first on the POI that our Prime Minister have got. They have asked us that the government does have the ability, and the government can actually intervene in this kinds of abuse problems. However, ladies and gentlemen, we want to say to the opposition that they should actually reflect the reality, ladies and gentlemen. They're actually ignoring the reality. There are lots of abuses that are actually taking place in the status quo. However, they're not actually considering this reality that should be that are actually made in this status quo. We believe that their POI should not stand, and also they have said that because of when this privilege does not exist, the lawmakers will get interrupted by when they make the process of laws. However, ladies and gentlemen, we want to ask the opposition that when there's abuse such as punch up or bribery case, is this something that intervenes, and is this something that hinders the process of making a law or making the Congress more effectively, ladies and gentlemen? We believe that because this kind of immune system cannot actually fully make from its purpose, we believe that this immunity system should be abolished.
PY, ma'am.
No, thank you, ma'am. Sorry. And also going on to their first argument, they have said about the necessity and shows that the lawmakers are the representatives. However, ladies and gentlemen, we also believe that they are the representatives, and this is why these lawmakers should actually be the ones because they make the laws, and because they are the ones who make the progress by the laws, they are the ones who should obey these laws, ladies and gentlemen. But however, in the status quo, there are so much abused cases that I would like to represent in my further argument. Also, they have said that this will actually make a better development in democratic society, and they have said because they have different ideas and different point of view, this immunity system should exist. However, ladies and gentlemen, then why is this in this status quo, the parliamentary immunity system is being justified, such as violence. Violence inside this kinds of parliamentary immunity system is being justified, such as Kim Son-dong case that our Prime Minister have shown you.
PY, ma'am.
So from my speech, I'd like to elaborate more to our second argument about the abuse of immunity system and go further to our second argument, the third argument, which is about the public's distrust. Ladies and gentlemen, unlike the functions and the purpose of the parliamentary immunity system, the members of the National Assembly are not using their privilege in a proper way. In other words, this means that the lawmakers are abusing their purpose under the name of immunity system. Let me give an example for the better picture of today's motion. Recently, during the session, there was a shocking scene of hitting and striking by the two lawmakers. To occupy the speaker's podium in order to pass the bill, there was a fight between them, and these two lawmakers grabbed each other by the neck and tried to bring the opponent's team to the floor. Even one lawmaker was seen lying upon the blue mattress with nurses checking her blood pressure. Shamefully, ladies and gentlemen, this is the reality of the National Assembly. Some lawmakers even use tear bombs, fire pumps, electric drills, and even an iron hammer. And this is why South Korean politicians are so famous for resolving the disputes with the occasional parliamentary punch-up.
Exactly, ma'am.
No, thank you, sir. In every debate, ladies and gentlemen, we should never neglect the status quo and ignore the reality. Moreover, every law gets to have a synthetic judgment by considering the present condition about how well these laws are applicable in the status quo. Then going back to the point, can you see the necessity of this parliamentary immunity system, ladies and gentlemen? When we look at the status quo, the immunity system is being an easy excuse for these parliamentary when they make a faulty action, which means that it has become a safeguard and a shield saying about the excuse about their faulty actions. And we believe, as representatives of one nation, this should not be made. Now, leading to our third argument, I'd like to explain about the public's distrust that is made by this immunity system. As the opposition have already mentioned, lawmakers are the government officials who represent every citizen of our nation. However, because of these kinds of abuse cases is taking place too frequently, they cannot actually take the responsibility of what they should do in the status quo as a representative and as a public figure, ladies and gentlemen. Lawmakers express the citizens' interest inside the National Assembly by making a better policy. However, because of the wrongful use and the abuse of the immunity system, the lawmakers are incurring the discredit between citizens. And can we say that the immunity system is actually contributing for the better democratic society, ladies and gentlemen? Instead of being capable politicians, they are now criticized as a disqualification of lawmakers. Ladies and gentlemen, the purpose of immunity system is to promote and maintain the original purpose of democratic society. When there is a right and when there is a freedom, ladies and gentlemen, there is a precondition of responsibility. However, the abuse that is actually taking place in the status quo is actually shown, this seen consequently, frequently, inevitably, and even continuously. Therefore, we believe that the immunity system has lost its true purpose and even hindered the process as to maintain the democratic society. And we want to ask the opposition that is hindering the procedure of democratic society? Is this what the opposition really wants from this debate, ladies and gentlemen, about abusing and the distrust of the public? We believe not. And because therefore, in order to make the democratic flourish, we believe that the immunity system should be diminished. And because of these reasons, we the government is proud to propose. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we are debating under the motion, this House should remove the parliamentary immunity of lawmakers. And today, the opposition side firmly believes that we shouldn't remove this parliamentary immunity for the sake of the lawmakers. And before going on to our arguments, I would like to rebut on what the government side's stance was. Well, the government side has mentioned about how we should protect the democratic principles, and we actually agree that the government has the right and has the obligation to protect the democratic principles going on in this whole governmental branch. But the process of what the government has been talking about is completely wrong. First, they have talked about how it is unfair of having immunity over these lawmakers. And over this, they have mentioned about a term called special committee in this national parliament. And they said that since this committee is consisted of lawmakers, these lawmakers won't actually make these other fellow lawmakers go to prison. Well, we see a flaw here because the National Assembly right now isn't consisted of a single party. The National Assembly is consisted of numerous parties, and we believe that having the special committee consisted of numerous parties will actually solve this problem. Because if, let's say, if there is a politician from Saenuri party did something wrong and should be arrested, and what if there's only Saenuri party people in this special committee, of course this politician won't be arrested. But in reality, this special committee isn't consisted of this only Saenuri people. It's consisted of many other parties, such as the Democratic Party. And we believe that if there is an opposition party, this party will actually insist on the arrest of this specific politician. And
Sir.
no, and we believe that having this tool is actually going to prevent what the government side is
P.I.
thinking
sir.
on. Yes, ma'am.
Then can you prove on why the special committee hadn't gave any punishment to the other lawmakers who had abused this kind of policy?
That is the whole point of the debate. And I'll talk to you why they did this throughout my arguments. And second, they have talked about how the politicians abused their powers in order for their convenience, and they have talked about that this thing is a privilege, and we believe that this isn't a privilege, but it is actually a tool for the lawmakers to do their best in making a law for the nation. And we believe that the lawmakers do have some drawbacks, and they are actually sometimes not doing their full job as a lawmaker, but we believe that they need the protection of the government and from the law. No,
P.I. sir.
ma'am. And of the law in order to do their best in their time of being a lawmaker. And also, they have given us an example of the violence of Kim Son-dong politician. But we believe in that case was completely like a fight between all of these politicians in the National Assembly. But in the government's logic, we have to actually arrest all of these politicians who engage in this fight. And in the government's logic, there will be only like a few politicians who will be able to stand in the national parliament. And in the government's logic, almost 100 lawmakers will be arrested to the police. And we believe that if this happens in reality,
PY,
it will
sir.
be completely ridiculous. No, ma'am. It will be completely ridiculous. And the National Assembly won't do a good job in doing what they're supposed to do.
PY, sir.
No. And the third argument about public distrust, well, they said that they are disqualified if they do something wrong. But we think that if they're really disqualified in being a lawmaker, they won't be re-elected in the next term. And if what they have done is so severe, we believe that these congressmen will come down from their chair automatically because the citizens will actually make them go down from their chair. And going on to our arguments, this third argument about how it'll undermine the lawmaking process. Well, this actually links to the government side's third argument. Well, these politicians are going to be branded as criminals who are making laws if in the government's logic. What crimes they engaged in isn't really important, ladies and gentlemen. People will call them criminals, whatever the crime is. And the nation will have a bad image over the members of the national parliament. It wouldn't have been an issue if they weren't people who are making laws for the nation, like hundreds of laws for the nation each year. It has become an issue because they are doing such an important thing for the nation. While the government side may think that these politicians have to be responsible for these actions because they are doing important things for the nation, we believe that the bad image that these politicians will have over the citizens will give detrimental harms. Well, what detrimental harms they will give? Well, citizens will definitely not trust the legislative branch, which will probably be full of the criminals according to the government's logic. They will be full of criminals because without the parliamentary immunity of lawmakers, these lawmakers will actually be caught from the police with only like really minor crimes. And we believe if this national parliament and legislative branch of Korea is full of criminals, we believe that the nation won't be able to trust the legislative branch. And even by just calling them a criminal, calling them and symbolizing them as a criminal is actually doing such a detrimental harm to these lawmakers. We believe that it is completely ridiculous to actually remove this parliamentary immunity of lawmakers. And also, even the smallest crimes will actually deter the lawmaking process of these people, as I have said before. And these people can actually harm the whole image of the legislative branch. And we believe that even though they are doing a bad job, quite a bad job in some specific areas, they are actually needed to be protected because they aren't going to be re-elected for the next term if they aren't doing a good job in actually making the law. And we believe that these members of the parliament are also people who can actually make blunders. And we also believe that we should actually protect these blunders from getting attacked from numerous lawsuits. And that is why we oppose for today's motion. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As the government whip, I'm standing here to tell you my speech. And today we have developed the issue that this also remove the parliamentary immunity of lawmakers. And we, the government side, strongly propose this point. And before I go to showing clashes in this debate and showing why we, the government side, had to take this debate, let me briefly introduce how was today's debate was about. while we, the government side, focus on the reality, what kind of things actually happening in our parliamentary system, and also what kind of measure do we have to really take to improve such a atmosphere and a lots of problem that is happening in today's parliamentary immunity. And while we propose that point, the opposition side just focus on the theoretical things, which is written in the paper, and which was the first purpose of the parliamentary immunity, the privilege, and it was not so realistic, and thus this is the first point that we have to take this debate. So the only clashes and the really big clash in this debate was about the democracy. The both sides, the government and opposition, agreed that we have to pursue a better democratic system. However, just the measure was different. And we, the government side, believe that removing the parliamentary immunity can actually contribute to our development of democratic system. Thus, we propose this point. So, before I go to the opposition's point, let me briefly introduce why we believe that this privilege of the lawmakers is hinder the democracy. First of all, when they are above the law and they do not keep the law that they decided, that they made, and those persons who do not obey the law make the law, then it cannot be reasonable, and no one will follow that, and this is so much unfair. For this point, the opposition side rebelled that the parliamentary system is not constructed with one party, so they will not protect themselves, protect each other. However, just like the first speaker said, it is so clear that they do not want to punish the lawmakers, even though they are in other parties. And the statistics show that just little lawmakers actually get punishment, even though they do actually wrong things. So it shows that reality, however, just the opposition's assumption and their idea was not enough to rebut this point. And for second of all, there are so much abuse, just like our first and second speaker amazingly explained, and also we have to be shamed for our parliamentary picture. For this point, the opposition sorry, but that most of lawmakers should be then most of the lawmakers should be arrested in order to our logic. However, the thing is, because they rely on the parliamentary immunity, they do commit such a violence in the parliamentary, and that caused the seriousness of our parliamentary system's picture, which is always fight, which is the image of our parliamentary system, and there's such a lot of violence and the bribery happens in today's reality. And for the third point, we provided the arguments, the public's distrust. When the lawmakers just abuse this policy, even though it was for them, they just abuse it, and the public do not want to trust them. And the basic logic of the democracy, which is the citizens vote for to choose the lawmakers, and we believe that lawmakers to make the proper law for us. However, when we cannot distrust them, when we cannot trust them, their system will be totally ruined and totally hindered by this parliamentary immunity. So this was the points that we provided to prove why parliamentary immunity actually hindered our democracy. So our action. Before that. And the opposition's point was about idealistic again. They said it is just a tool to make democracy work better. However, they didn't provide specific example of how does lawmakers use this parliamentary immunity in good way, and also they couldn't deal with our point, which was we showed this lots of abuse cases.
You are, sir.
No, thank you. Lots of abuse cases actually happening in nowadays, and also. They said they need to be protected because the citizens will be the one who judge their attitude and judge their behavior. So we shouldn't judge them as with law. However, the thing is, just like our first and second speaker have already emphasized, this happens for a long time, and it is now happening. There's such an abuse case, and the lack of the manner in the parliamentary system is happening right now, and also it is keep happening since there was a parliamentary system in Korea. So what we want to propose is, if there is a parliamentary immunity, then we cannot pursue the right democracy that has the great system that everyone have a great manner in the parliamentary system, and the lawmakers do not abuse their right, which is the idol that opposition want to make as a background. So what we want to say is to make such an idealistic society, then we have to, we need some kind of some kind of sacrifice. And in today's debate, this has clearly showed there are lots of things that they hinder democracy by the parliamentary immunity. Thus, Thus, we have to remove this parliamentary immunity for the lawmakers, because every right, every privilege needs the responsibility for them. However, when they just abuse the case and just hinder the democracy's development, which was the first purpose of the parliamentary immunity, then thus privilege should be removed. So in this debate, today's our amazing first and second speaker provide lots of examples and lots of great logic that shows why the parliamentary immunity actually harmed our democracy, which was the purpose of the parliamentary immunity, which the opposition sides want to pursue and want to argue. So in this debate, the opposition side just focus on the idealistic society and just the logical procedure of the parliamentary immunity, which they can search on the internet and in front of the desk, which was not suitable for today's debate, which talk about the exact policy, not the utopia or the idealistic world. Since we are talking about the real policy that will be applied on the real society, the parliamentary that has the not so good atmosphere and not so good picture, not so good image, to improve such a happening, then we shouldn't be just idealistic, and we should be such realistic to improve the reality. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am the last speaker of the opposition whip, and today the opposition believes that we have won this debate, and therefore the parliamentary immunity should be continued. Well, government has distorted our ideas. We believe that parliamentary immunity guarantees the most effective government to our society, whereas the government is mentioning that we are dreaming of a utopian society. So clearly, they have distorted our ideas. And moving on to our clashes, I have identified two clashes throughout the debate. The first, the effectiveness of a government, and second, the clash about the equality. Now, let's move on to our first clash, the effectiveness of government. Before moving on, Gollum from Lord of the Rings, he has this line, "My love, my own, my precious," for his ring. And this is the nature of power. And this is the reason why parliamentary began in first place in the 16th century. Back then, there were noblemen and kings who wanted to grab their powers back from the politicians or the congressmen of the blooming democracy. And in order to protect them from regaining the power, there was the parliamentary immunity. So this is the nature of power. Everyone wants the power for his own and for himself only. And therefore, this continues to the current society as well. Politicians, as they mentioned, sometimes turn the Congress into a UFC tournament. Well, as a matter of fact, this happens also because they want the powers for themselves only. And that's the reason why there's a lot of fighting going around. So that was the explanation of the nature of power. And let's move on to the government's role. A government, any form of government, capitalist, socialist, democratic government, or all these communist government, all these governments have a basic goal. They want to lead their country into a better future. They want to develop their country so that they would see the brighter future. Well, as a matter of fact, this is the point why, this is the reasons why parliamentary immunity is actually important for the society. As we mentioned before, because of the nature of power, politicians, however logical and rational they may be, they'll try to grab their powers for their own. And if there's no parliamentary immunity, there's going to be numerous claims going on in the courts. For example, if there's a congressman who felt insulted during the Congress discussion, they might sue the government official as defamation. And these kind of events will actually occur a lot, considering the fact that people want their powers for their own. So they would actually try to harm the opposing politicians' reputation and all their stances. So if there's too much of these stuffs going on, the government will be paralyzed, and this is a problem because the government won't be able to fulfill their role. As I mentioned before, government's role is to lead the country into a brighter future. And in a democratic society, parliament is really important because that's the part of three governments, that's the government that actually legislates the law that is going to regulate the society. And that legislating would be paralyzed because of the puny little fights and disputes between the congressmen such as defamation fights or trying to get all the briberies. And this is and one more thing, this is also harmful because even though there's a conspiracy, that's enough for filing a lawsuit. And even though and considering the fact that lawsuit takes about 6 months in average, for that 6 months, that congressman won't be able to function as a whole or function for the people who he's supposed to represent. So basically, this means that it won't fulfill the government's role, but also considering the fact that a democratic government wants its leaders to represent their people, he won't be able to represent the people himself, so he won't be able to actually go on fulfill the role of a government official in a democratic society. And moving on to the second clash about the equality, well, it is true that this tool may look unequal to a certain people, and this may have some unequal parts. However, once a government official, a parliament member is elected, he is not a normal citizen anymore. He has the burden of all the citizens he represents for. And considering the fact that in order to actually fulfill his role, this kind of tool is absolutely needed. And furthermore, in the Constitution, it is mentioned that these parliamentary immunities is only active when the Congress is open. I said Congress is open. So when the Congress is actually not open, they can be treated as normal citizens. Furthermore, considering the fact that people are not stupid, even though these congressmen may not be punished for their actions, people will punish them. As I mentioned before, in a democratic society, people are the ones that actually elected their members. Yes, ma'am.
Then can you prove any one case that the punishment was being made?
Well, actually, there was a numerous case because of the public reputation and public sentiment, the government official actually had to come down from his seat, and well, as a matter of fact, that was a clear punishment for the government official. And plus, because of these people can actually control and punish these parliament members, it is not as bad and it is not as unequal as the government is continuously posing. So I want a brighter future for Korea. I want a government that actually functions for people. I want a government who actually knows how to balance between the nature of power and use the power for the people himself. And clearly, as the government has proven throughout the speeches, as the leader of the opposition has proven, as the deputy leader of the opposition proven, and as the whip speaker has proven, parliamentary immunity is the answer to the government that we want, and therefore we take this debate home. Well, I yield my time.
Ladies and gentlemen, for the people, of the people, by the people, the basic rule of our democracy. Now today, the government side is only thinking about punishing the politicians. And we believe that in our democratic society, the priority is to think about who can actually represent our society better. And because they are focusing only on punishing these politicians, we believe today that the opposition takes this debate home. Now, do they realize that removing parliamentary immunity would actually be punishing the people who supported the law that politician was supporting in the first place? The opposition does not understand how the government believes that it is justified that the personal faults of one politician can actually lead to the punishment of an entire group of people who would suddenly be deprived of a representative. Now, firstly, on the matter of equality, the government talked about equality. Now, we are the ones who are actually supporting equality. Now, how does a democratic society function? They function when people choose representatives because they believe that that person can actually make the laws that they support. But what would happen because parliamentary immunity doesn't exist? These people had to go to court because of trivial reasons all the time. They had to go to court and they had to be interrupted in the middle of representing these people. What would happen to the people who had been supporting the law of that politician? These people would suddenly be deprived of their rights, of their equal right to be able to have a representative in their democratic society. And because we believe that having the parliamentary immunity is actually how we are going to preserve equality in our society, we take the equality to our side. Now, they talked about reality and they asked if we could actually prove any good ways that this parliamentary immunity is showing in our society. Ladies and gentlemen, it is showing itself every day. The reason why people, despite showing strong stances, the reason that people can have aggressive stances, the reason that they can be active in the Congress is because this parliamentary immunity exists. It is because they have this parliamentary immunity, and because of this, they are able to show their strong opinions and have strong stances in the Congress. So we believe that in the reality, the parliamentary immunity is showing its effects. And also, they talked about the needs. Now, firstly, we believe that because in the current law, it already says that felonies, serious crimes, no matter what, will be punished in the first place. But in cases where small, trivial problems actually harm the process of making a democratic law, the process of these politicians representing the people, we believe that this is wrong because these trivial matters cannot be the obstacle in representing what our people need. Also, they talked about the public distrust. Now, yes, we agree the public distrust is actually a problem, but they missed a step in the logical link. Now, why did public distrust occur in the first place? Now, think about it. When do you see politicians? When do you see them in the first place? You see them through the media. Now, we told you in our speech, in my first part of the speech, that the reason that the parliamentary immunity is still valid in our society is because these politicians need to be protected from people who can act as their enemies. And I provided this people as the media. And we have shown you that because these medias can actually distort information, can exaggerate information to making the public distrust political parties, we believe that we need this parliamentary immunity to prevent these enemies from undermining the democratic procedure. And lastly, as I said again, the government side today is only thinking about punishing these politicians. But as I said, for the people, of the people, by the people, the key to the democratic society, the pillars of our democracy, is actually the people, the citizens who are living in that society. Now, they talked about violence and all sort of these extreme examples that occurred in our society. But we believe that the government should actually put a priority in what is most important, and what is most important is these people. And because we believe that only with the parliamentary immunity, these people can be represented consistently, the opposition side today strongly believes that we take this debate home. Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am the reply speaker of the government. Who can represent our society better? They said it's the lawmakers who represent nations. However, if the lawmakers who represent the nation doesn't take responsibility to use their privilege in a proper way, in this case, they cannot represent nation. They are not eligible to be a lawmaker and to represent our society. So in this debate, what the government wants is that because the lawmakers are misusing and abusing their immunity so much, and the degree and the frequency of misusing and abusing the parliamentary immunity is so high, we want to abolish it and abolish the immunity, and then make a better society with lawmakers who can be lawmakers. In this debate, we had three arguments. First, we had unfairness of the parliamentary immunity. We talked about that citizens are all equal under the law. However, with this immunity system, with this privilege of the lawmakers, the citizens cannot be equal. And lawmakers are misusing. And as lawmakers, they do make laws. However, they are misusing the law that they are making. And we believe that this is not a proper thing, and we think that it is not fair for them to have the privilege. And second, we talked about the abuses. We showed many examples of abuses of lawmakers. We said that the lawmakers are actually wielding their power, wielding their immunity. And this is not what government wants. We want that lawmakers fulfill their responsibility without these abuses. And these abuses are made because there is an existence of the parliamentary immunity. And also we talked about the public distrust. Public distrust is very important. Public distrust is important because the government is responsible for the nation. And if the nations do not trust the government, then what do you think it will happen? In the democratic state, we don't want nations who dislike the government and who cannot believe and who cannot support the lawmakers who make the laws that will be implemented toward them. Again, for these reasons, we the government believe that the parliamentary immunity should be removed. And the deputy leader of the opposition said lawmakers can make blunders. Blunder is to make a foolish mistake. Yes, it's true, they are human beings. They can make mistakes. However, again, these foolish mistakes are taking place too frequently. And we believe, and because the frequency and because the disadvantages of the abuses of parliamentary immunity, we believe that the lawmakers no longer need immunity system. They should focus on their responsibility as a lawmakers to make a better society as a democratic state. For these reasons, I think the government takes the debate home.
The speaker spoke for 4 minutes, 6 seconds.
Thank you for your outstanding effort. Speakers may now close the floor and shake hands.